All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA Show. I'm sick of saying mastering self-confidence. So I'm with my co-host, Robert Benenati.
Here I am.
There you are. So I got a funny thing I want to bring up here.
What is that?
I'm going to call, I felt rules were not for, wait, how am I going to say this? I felt rules were for thee and not for me. Right?
Yeah, we never want to follow rules.
No, and I think, not that you're a foreigner, and I was kind of raised by foreigners, and you were kind of raised by foreigners. You even lived in Argentina. Yeah. I think even my parents, I think they really have their own rules still to this day. And I know they abide to the rules of society the best they can, but I really believe, and I can only say this from a lot of Italians because my entire family is mainly Italian, they don't fucking respect rules. Do you go through this? Because, I mean, you have immigrant,
my
family members.
Italian. My
yeah.
dad was born in Sicily, so yeah. They don't obey society rules as much as their own rules, I think.
Yeah, right? I mean, of course they're not going to speed, like something like that. But when it comes to even growing up, taxes or what, they had their own ways of just doing everything. And then I think they kind of programmed that into me. Let me start here. My mother and father owned a bar. So starting from 2 years old to 12 years old, I'm in and out of my father's bar, even though my mother and father got divorced when I was 5 or 6 years old. So I went from my father having really doesn't make any sense. I'm hanging in a bar where people are drinking, smoking, doing drugs, doing whatever they want to do, and I'm there. I'm not saying doing it with them, but that's against the law.
Yeah.
My father didn't believe that. My father would give me peppermint schnapps or give me peach schnapps to drink with him and relax. Like it was... And my mother on the other side then became very religious, so she was all about rules with religion, not with her own rules, but I'm just saying, so I kind of had this dynamic where somebody was obsessed with all these rules, and if you broke them, you'd go to hell. And my father is obsessed on the other one, saying, if you follow these rules,
you'll go to hell.
You'll go to hell. So I had two of them say, no matter which way I went.
You'll go to hell.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck? But my immigrant grandparents, too, the way they... And aunts, uncles, cousins, still to this day, my uncles are like...
I think as human nature, we just are rebellious and don't like to follow rules. I mean, as a kid, you tell them don't touch, they touch. Don't go up there, they get up there. It's just human nature.
Yeah, but I think with... I went to Italy with my uncles who are, they're those type of guys in Chicago. And they're just guys you don't want to fuck around with their whole life. And you spend a couple weeks with your uncles again. My dream was to go to Italy with them. And I was with them my whole life. And I'm just listening to them thinking, they don't respect really a lot of people's opinions unless it's their own or the family's.
Unless it's convenient, yeah.
Yeah. And I never grew up in any environment regarding politics. And I'd hate to say, it was almost like they were, of course, they're not above politics.
Right.
But it wasn't even on their radar. They did not...
Disregarded it, yeah.
They just disregarded that.
Yeah.
I've never voted. I tell people, and people get aggravated with me. And I don't think a lot of my family members vote either. So a lot of my cousins. They may pretend they do or they know shit, and it's a lot of fucking bullshit out there they're talking now, especially. But before this whole situation in the last few years, nobody was really in my family talking about politics. It was actually, don't even bother me with that bullshit kind of type environment. And I didn't know because you went to Argentina, so you're born in New York, and then you go there. So you had two different countries' rules, kind of. Did it get confusing or is it similar? What is that like?
Honestly, I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, it's like...
Was it the same?
I don't think I consider the rule situations as much because I'm like that. I'm a little rebellious with rules. If it doesn't make sense, if it's just nonsense, it's like I disregard it.
Are there laws similar to ours? Because I have no idea about Argentina. I kind of know about Italy because
you still got sales tax and you have traffic laws and you have
pretty similar.
Yeah.
I found it interesting when I would travel. So if I'm in Florida, I'm a laid back type of dude, not, whatever. And then all of a sudden in New York, you kind of take on more of an aggression type attitude. Even if I'm in Chicago, it's more, it's more intense, right? If you're in the city, you got to do certain things. You got to get shit done. People are in your way. Got to catch a cab or an Uber. You got to get work done.
I think that's more like, sound cliche and whatnot, but more energy and vibe situation.
For sure.
You're put into that situation, right?
Yeah.
It's like you don't like to dance or whatever. You walk into a club at night and the music's beating. You start, your body starts moving on its own, right?
Right.
Well, same thing. You go to New York and people just walking, 5 miles per hour, 7 miles per hour. You just go with the flow.
For sure.
You're not going to walk around just looking at, the skyline and just, wandering around. You're just going, And if you're not going, they'll push you. They'll carry you around. But I think that's one of the things. You come here to Florida and you just even the way you drive here, it's totally different than probably New York or Chicago.
Yeah, and back to rules, it was kind of the way we all have, and I always talk about your, behavior. You know what I mean? Becoming aware of your behaviors, everything. And I find myself in the States, and then I'd go to Canada, and I'm not just saying this. Most of the people there were just so nice. And I found myself acting different in another.
Is it slow?
Well, Toronto's kind of busy. They have mains. Vancouver's kind of busy. You got different cities there. But when I'd go there, it wasn't. It was just simple, I guess you could say. It's a very beautiful Canada, a lot of parts. If you're free, if it's freezing, it's freezing, or whatever the case may be. But I just see a lot of different attitudes to or behavior from our country to theirs. Not sticking up for one or the other, if that kind of makes sense. But as far as seeing how people kind of adapt to certain rules,
that's
is very interesting.
To rules because Argentina's like that. Everybody's slower in the sense of, everyone's nicer, everyone's polite, everyone's, walking into a restaurant and you could just sit down and you're not in a rush to get out, or you're not getting your your check right away. Like here, you're not in a rush, but here's a check.
Yeah.
And why you bring the check?
Yes.
You can sit down and have a conversation for 3-4 hours. They're not going to put any pressure on you. So it's kind of slower, nicer. I guess you get to live life a little more. I don't see the rules part being involved. So when you mention rules, I'm thinking more legal rules.
Yeah.
Traffic rules or just
yourself.
No.
My grandparents from Italy used to say I was born in the wrong country because I never wanted to adapt to society's rules. My mother says that still to this day about me. Like,
for example,
so I believe like going to school, and I think back to programming, like
my kid wants to go to school.
Yeah, but it was like from say 2 to 5 years old, you're in and out. Your parents own a nightclub, and you're with them. You're in and out, and then all of a sudden I got thrown into school. So I went from this pretty kind of crazy fun thing with my parents all the time, and now all of a sudden I got to sit here for 6-7 hours. I wanted to kill myself.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, and then my father and my mother love sports, so we were doing sports too. I just felt like somebody put the brakes on me, and I'd hate to say this, I looked at teachers back then, or adults, a lot of them, they were full of shit, even though I was only 5 or 6 years old. But as time went on, I'm still spending a lot of time in my dad's nightclub. I'm seeing how a lot of adults truly behave. So I'm kind of going, wait a minute. And that goes for parents. So I thought, a lot of bullshit going on. But I wanted to take naps whenever I wanted to take naps. I just felt like this was a lot of wasted time. And again, if you've ever had a parent that's owned his own business and you've hung out a lot with them, you kind of see them making money and living a certain lifestyle that you want to live that now. I don't want to sit with this, in a classroom with a bunch of people. And
it happened to me. I was being in New York. My dad was a contractor, right?
Right.
So on summer vacations and weekends, I would go with him to work. Well, to help him, right?
Sure.
But I remember at the age of, I don't know, probably 10.
Yeah.
I could hang a door.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And they didn't come pre-hinged or anything. You have to actually take the hinges, mark them, chisel them out, right? And then put it on, and then do the same thing on the frame, and then hang the door, right?
Gotcha.
I would be able to do that at 10.
Yeah.
And then I would go to school on Monday, and I'm looking around. I'm like, what kid in here knows how to hold a chisel hammer, hang a door, or just work with a jigsaw or any tool?
Yeah.
You know. And I always, and that was a thought I always had. I was like, I shouldn't be here. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
6 hours, just copy this, write this, do that. Now I get it. There's a structure to all that. Of course. But, at that time I was like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, I get it. I love working like an animal as long as it's what I want to work on. It's a wholeheartedly selfish. I see so much selfishness sometimes. I mean, I love giving helping anybody I can, but on the other side, I am only into what I am into, and I really realized that when we went to Italy, because a lot of my cousins, some work, some don't. I think 50% don't work there right now, or whatever. But I really always kind of lived a life here that is similar to theirs, more or less, if that kind of makes sense. The way they kind of wake up and they kind of calm it down a little bit, and they want to do this. They want to always kind of be in a restaurant a little bit, have some drink. Let's have coffee and let's do that. Let's relax. Why are we rushing? Let's go take a nap. I said, I'm looking at my cousins and going, this is basically who I am in my own country, if that makes sense. Yeah. I've lived their lifestyle without even really truly knowing it.
Well, Argentina's like that.
Yeah.
When I got there, 12. So you work from 8 to 12.
Yeah.
Then business just shuts down from 12 to 4, opens up at 4.
Yes.
Until 8 p.m. And then you have dinner, 9
Late.
p.m. Right?
I love it.
Right. So when I get there, coming from New York, move, busy, and I like 12. I didn't get it. Like 12 to 4, I'm like, it was desert. No one in the streets. It's just some of the kids, playing soccer, doing whatever, out and about. But then I started grasping that. I was like, I love this.
Yes.
I get to sleep siesta from, 1 to 2, 1 to 3.
Yes.
Then wake up, everything's slower. Then you get up and you have coffee right before you, it was great.
I'll say one last. It's not a name dropping thing. I was able to meet with Joe Montana, the well known actor, once in L.A. because my family members all know him and they grew up with him. And then he said, "Where do you live, Rich?" I said, "Florida." And then he goes, "Yeah, California." And our family's from Cicero, which whatever, it's a part of Chicago. And I told him, I said, "Listen, I don't know what it was. I felt like a foreigner sometimes in my own country." And he's like, "Rich, I felt like." So, for instance, he moved to California. He was a musician. Then he became an actor. He's like, something internally, because he's Sicilian, he couldn't stand the cold. And neither could I. And he said, you know what? It's just in your blood, maybe, even though you didn't it's just something that you felt that you couldn't, like, you had to move somewhere else. You couldn't deal with it. Mm-hmm. His mother didn't leave Chicago, but he said no matter what, he was leaving. He hated the cold weather. He went to California because it was kind of the closest to a certain degree to Italy that he can find in this country, which was quite interesting. And he wasn't even born there, and I kind of felt the same way. So it's kind of interesting.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, that's why we're all doing our thing over here. So now we're in Florida. Now we're tropical over here. All right, that's it. If you want to check out Robert's got his own podcast over here, Real Business. What else? You're on YouTube? You tell him where the hell you're at.
YouTube, Facebook, Apple, if you want to listen.
Yeah.
Real Business Podcast, yep.
He's going to be doing some other stuff with his podcast. We're trying to figure it out, or he's trying to figure it out. All right. That's all I got for you today. Take care.